I'm Robert Eggington. I'm the Director of the Dumbartung Aboriginal Corporation, and I've been working out here at Dumbartung for 28 years. The organisation first started off in the old dormitory buildings. We're upstairs of that building, and it was very bare when we first started here at Clontarf. It was basically the remnants of the old orphanage, and over a long period of time we built up the resources of Dumbartung, and I think I was probably here for 20 years or so before Selina started here with the Quab Women's Healing Program. So we've been on this journey in relationship to Dumbartung and its work for over 28 years.
My name is Selina Eggington. I've been here at Dumbartung for 10 years now, and I originally came here as a project coordinator for the Women's Healing Program, which was the Quab Women's Healing Program, and that program was based on initiating healing projects and cultural art projects for women who were traumatised through various traumas and abuse, and the original idea came through the Sue Gordon inquiry, because we were concerned about women who weren't accessing mainstream agencies in terms of their counselling. So we wanted to create a space where women can come together, and that was culturally appropriate, but also have a sense of belonging to that particular area.
Well, over a process of 28 years as an organisation, you become intergenerational. So you're dealing with issues in where over that 28 years it included people that are now elders in our community and then younger people. And look at projects from the early days of Dumbartung, which was inclusive of very important healing processes as well, which was the Kayana festivals and the repatriation programs, the Aboriginal Prisoners Art program that we run. So you looked at all the sort of different healing concepts within our initiatives, right through to the Quab, the Women's Healing Program. But it's like an evolution of where one project really gave substance to another project happening. And at Dumbartung you needed an agenda that was an administration art form in its own right, but also the initiative to be able to coordinate those projects as the need in the community was represented. So Dumbartung had I believe an open agenda to look at what the needs in the community actually is and was during those years. And the Kayana concept still remain, I would say, in living memory for Noongar people to be the most important and the most broadest cultural celebrations. And again, the festivals or the gatherings, the corroborees as we termed them, was like a massive healing process for our communities, and it came up like a mirror to show our people the first time our people, and it gave people a initiative to be able to ascertain what they wanted to do within what they saw within that concept. So therefore it led itself as a trend for many things right across Australia in reference to cultural celebration and cultural coordination. Kayana was a very important part of the Dumbartung journey, and from Kayana, as we were saying, we developed the healing processes for the Aboriginal prisoner art, and the Aboriginal prisoners art was a massive healing process. So when you looked at Dumbartung's initiatives, they were all based on the process for our people through them, early initiatives right through to the Quab Women's Healing Program, and of course the way in which Dumbartung then became a place of solace for our community and our families in the community that was suffering a sense of loss and grief through suicide and also through domestic violence. And we had gained a wealth of knowledge in terms of those early projects to give us, I believe, the substance and the situation to be able to effectively coordinate community healing programs such as Quab, and they were important in that journey.
Well, at Dumbartung we believe that culture is the basis of healing, and so in terms of utilising and culture in our healing projects, the healing is always centred around the Kayana Gallery and the objects and the paintings, and we also refer to a lot of the artists that have contributed to the gallery and the sort of lives they led as children, and we use their lives through their art as an example when we talk to young people, when we take them into the gallery. And so I suppose the Kayana Gallery and all the objects and the art is the very essence of all our healing programs. Then we are able to initiate those healing programs through a lot of the art that we do here with various groups, whether it's paperbark art or watercolour art, or sometimes it might be just having groups come here and talk to them about culture in general and talking about history and how colonisation has impacted on Aboriginal people today, and particularly the stolen generation. And we look at healing holistically, and so we're looking at not just the physical side and the emotional side, but also the mental and particularly the spiritual side of healing. And that's where the gallery comes into play, is when you're looking at a spiritual healing. You're doing that through culture and all the objects within the Kayana Gallery. And so I think the gallery is pivotal to the work that we do here at Dumbartung, and we couldn't do the sort of work that we do without having that gallery, and particularly the objects and the paintings and the whole cultural concept of the gallery.
Well, the political emphasis of history that Dumbartung places in terms of our archives is really the foundation for creating an awareness amongst our young people about what's the basis of the challenges in their life. I mean, genocide and colonisation is a process very hard to understand or get a comprehension of, even if you're an oppressed person or you're in a situation in terms of an Indigenous existence. It's important because it's like taking off shackles and chains in terms of what that oppression can create in people's lives, and you've got to create an awareness of the issues that relate to what's happened in this country, but in a very truthful way, and a way in which, of course, different levels of maturity can understand in terms of being able to accept as well in terms of their psyche and their emotions. And it's always been a challenge of Dumbartung's to be able to balance their cultural knowledge and give that as a credence or foundation for young people to be able to then basically understand what the issues are politically that affects their lives. Aboriginal people, no doubt, are the most political people on the face of this earth in terms of how politics can affect a person or an individual person's life, and then the life of their community and their race. And the Indigenous issue and the Aboriginal issue in this country is very politicised in terms of our human rights, our cultural rights, our traditional rights, and therefore it's pivotal in terms of creating a healing process in terms of not just your cultural strengths and your knowledge in terms of culture, but political issues as well. And that's where issues stem in terms of deaths in custody regarding the Royal Commission, and having also insights into how these human rights are not only emphasised by reviews like the Royal Commission, but also how again they're industrialised by the system. So therefore the system capitalises on a lot of the recommendations and the outcomes of people's pain and suffering. And Dumbartung has been an organisation that has strived to create a transparency for our people to be able to see where in many circumstances the life of our people have become industrialised through being the most incarcerated race of people on this planet, with all the introduced mandatory laws of the 3 strikes and you're in laws, which have got a massive percentage of our young people in juvenile institutions and within prison systems. Also the move on, the curfew laws of the inner city areas in which was directed to be at our people in terms of the priority of the purpose of those curfews. Put a finger on a public or a police officer and you're in for a mandatory 12 months sentencing. So all those laws have resulted in the highest incarceration rates in the world in terms of our people, and also issues dealing with mental health, issues dealing with suicide statistics, especially youth suicide statistics, and it's an epidemic. That's a pandemic in this country, and again, that political awareness, I believe, allows our young people insights into what obviously the education systems and the media in this country control to be on the contrary of the truth. And that truth is what needs to be sought by all young people. So Dumbartung is instrumental in I believe, creating insights into those politics. And we do that through the cultural collection, through, as Selina said, the Kayana Gallery, because, in a way it's not just balancing the issues of re-strengthening people's lives culturally and or politically. In some ways, the very art that's inside that gallery is art that's been birthed from institutionalised existence within either the missions when these kids were part of the stolen generation, which is the Karulup history, or it's resulted in the history in terms of incarceration through the Fremantle prison by great artists like Revel Cooper, Reynold Hart, Gary Woods, Ralphie Woods, rest in peace. So it's a consistent knowledge coming from the art itself to the lives of our young people. So it's a matter of just connecting up that knowledge and allowing our people the insights and the growth from that. And that's, I believe, an enlightenment in terms of the way in which Dumbartung, as no other organisation has done so, in terms of bringing those two mandates together, the cultural and the healing initiatives that come as a result of that journey.
Well, I think the first thing that impacts them is that they're coming into an Aboriginal organisation that's staffed by 2 senior Aboriginal people, and they're hearing stories, or they're hearing the truth that is not taught in schools, and they're hearing it from people that have experienced a lot of trauma in life, and they're hearing it from people that work actively in the community, because they don't hear it, as I said, in the education system. They don't hear it, it's not talked about in families. So it's a real, for them, it's a real unique experience coming into such an agency. Like we always say, you can go to the Aboriginal Medical Service for health issues, you can go to various other agencies for counselling, but when a young person comes here, they're coming to hear about Aboriginal history told by Aboriginal people, and they're coming to hear about issues that are affecting Aboriginal people on a daily basis. And of course, trauma and suicide is a huge part of young Aboriginal people's life. And so they're hearing that story, but they're also hearing about the political side and how to deal with it in a political sense. But then after hearing that, they're hearing about the healing side and how to overcome those traumas and how to turn a lot of that pain and suffering that they're trying to cope with into a positiveness and building their strength upon that knowledge, but in a culturally appropriate way. So it's culture that's healing them, but it's also culture that's enabling them to become resilient in those challenges that they face as young Aboriginal people in today's society. And that's what they're hearing, and they're not hearing it from anyone else. And it's like when they're going away, they're taking a whole bag of tools with them in order to cope and to and it's opening up that awareness within them as well, and that's a very powerful, it's an empowerment that we're building within them of not only resistance but also of strength and identity as well.
I think what Selina said is really important in terms of how people endure into their own healing journeys, but also endure just in their own survival as an oppressed people in terms of the colonisation and genocide in this country. Because I think how people probably see Dumbartung's worth, and as we're trying to articulate it, is the fact that there's an endurance here that has created an organisation that's been under massive government siege and attack for many, many years, and we've been able to sustain an endurement through that. And I think what people see is the fact that as long as an organisation that they affiliate very strongly with, like Dumbartung, can continue that survival, well, in many ways, so do a lot of the people who have had a connection with Dumbartung. It's nearly like a sense of belonging in terms of a sacred sharing of the knowledge and the experiences, again, in which Selina spoke about, what young people get from a experience at Dumbartung probably can't be measured in the same way that you might get an educational qualification. It's very different in terms of what this organisation can offer to our people outside of what institutions can offer people in terms of the needs that they have in life. And again, I think what's important here is that spiritual and that cultural enlightenment is not just given to Aboriginal people for means of enduring against a very oppressive system and a dominant society, but is also shared with non-Aboriginal people, because if you look at dispossession and you look at issues dealing with mental health, it's within the white world of things, not within our spiritualism or within our religious belief system, in terms of how our old people live their life in accordance to understanding this land and an ancient culture that's associated with their ancestral beliefs and their the old people before us. So it's about, I suppose, sharing values in which can build better understandings of relationship between people and the earth and the land. And I've seen non-Aboriginal people walk from Dumbartung with as much enlightenment and with as much enthusiasm as do our young people. And a lot of what Dumbartung offers people is a sense of real, not reconciliation, but connection in terms of their humanity, and the need to, I suppose, give less emphasis on the consumerisation of our lives in the materialistic sense, to where spiritualism is obviously the priority, I believe, that should be pursued by people. And I think our old people's way of life gives that as a solace to many people, because there's a lot of people in this world to whom are either being downtrodden or being rejected by society and its values, and those people also find solace here at Dumbartung. And I think that's important, that people have got a place, and this is a place again where through the trauma and through the pain and the suffering of many different and various forms of trauma that people face, people can literally find here that this is a very confidential place in which they can come and just literally cry. And I think that if you look for that outside of religious structures in mainstream society, you probably wouldn't find it. So here at Dumbartung, we give tributes and shrines to to that form of suffering and pain, such as the Women's Healing Gardens here, which were established and created through the pain of women to whom have died at the hand of abuse and violence, right through to our tribute rooms of the photographs where again it's made up of all of our community members that have been here. So Dumbartung's consistently, I suppose, giving reference to the very things in life that in a lot of ways our community isn't respected in terms of having those realities that you can find in mainstream society, in terms of all of their tributes of respect, in terms of, let's say, I don't know, the Anzacs, the whole colonisation process, but it's the people here, the Indigenous people, that haven't been given that proper respect. Well, the gallery evolved somewhat with the same process as we did in terms of initiating the projects at Dumbartung. So the gallery was never set up as a gallery to commence. It was basically acquiring certain artworks and objects from our other projects, like the repatriation program, the Kayana festivals. So it sort of evolved as a collection in terms of these other initiatives. And in 2010 it got a significant assessment award from the federal government, and that basically declared it to be of a very significant cultural importance to Australian people and the society. So, we weren't funded initially to even run a gallery. So I suppose the difficulty there was that we had to try to resource the funds to keep the gallery going as a means of the resourcing of the entire organisation. And we started to run out of government funding here some 6 years ago, and we haven't been funded through the government probably for the last 5 years. We tendered for a program called Redress, and we were able to, through the fees of the Redress program, keep our rent paid, our power bills paid, and the administration part of Dumbartung. So, there was an initiative through Lottery West to continuously fund Dumbartung for the last 3 years. And at this stage, we're basically running out of government funding. And, as much as Dumbartung has tried, we've applied to all, different bureaucracies for funding. And at this stage, the funding is really difficult to attract. And so therefore, under the guise, I suppose, of renovating the roof through the Indigenous Land Corporation, to whom are the landlords here, we've had to move all of our collection out of the gallery, and we get the first right of refusal next February in terms of whether we can move back into the gallery space. And of course, that's going to depend upon whether we can actually pay the rent. And we don't have the funds committed, nor the funds guaranteed to be able to pay that rent. But of course, in our community, a lot of the senior people and the elders are very concerned at what will happen to the gallery, the content of the gallery, but also Dumbartung as an organisation. And so that's really important at, I suppose, which way we go with the future of the gallery.
I think what would mean to me, well, it certainly would be hope, and also I guess a lot of belief in what we're doing as a organisation, and that we can continue working in the community and working with people that are facing those insurmountable challenges, and we can work with those people. We have families coming here almost on a daily basis with massive issues, and it just means that we can continue working in our community with our people, and bringing hope to those families, and talking about the issues, and creating an awareness within those families of the impact of what colonisation has had on Aboriginal people. And if we can look at those issues and go back and trace those traumas and where they came from, I think that enables Aboriginal people just to have a more empowered way of dealing with those issues and trying to work towards a common, I suppose, solution, or becoming stronger within themselves to deal with those issues, and bringing encouragement to their families, and particularly their young people, and creating that really strong cultural foundation within the community.
Well, I suppose one of the challenges is to determine as an organisation whether it's about money or whether it's about other politics. And if it's about other politics, well then of course the priorities in which government has funded Dumbartung in the past has been obviously affected in terms of the present and the future. And we know that if you're, a cultural centre that, let's say, is situated within the tourist hub of a city, or has got specific interests in promoting itself as a tourism attraction, or an entertainment type venue, well, you can access funding within not only the government sector, but also within the private sector, and within also many philanthropist opportunities as well. But when you're like Dumbartung and you run a cultural centre that's been established for the healing process, and is established in regards of not only archiving and maintaining our history, but more importantly interpreting that history in a way in which has got the values of the very things that we've spoken about here in relationship to the worth of people's lives and how they perceive their own worth as an Aboriginal person. Well, you're going to be under attack by the government because of course it doesn't fall within their criteria of what a cultural centre should be like and the control of that cultural centre under the perimeters of their industry policy, such as those policies that govern the criteria for that funding through either the Ministry of Culture and the Arts, the Australia Council, or the Prime Minister and Cabinet's office. That's the Arts Office. So they're the sorts of dilemmas in which Dumbartung faces, because where we want to develop this concept in terms of the future is to even broaden it from the sort of gallery it is at the moment into setting up bastions that actually look at the genocide history and the issues dealing with the colonial process of this country, so that truth can be again derived and can be shared between all people. And if you look around the world now, you can see bastions that are set up in places like South Africa and in Europe, which specifically look at the apartheid history of South Africa, and that's the sort of history in which the governments there have had the courage to obviously promote through their institutions. If you look at different parts of Europe, and in particular here in Sydney and Melbourne, you've got facilities and institutions that look at the experience and the history of the Holocaust. And also in America and different parts of Europe, you've got institutions that also look at, creating an awareness about the slavery policies and the slavery from Africa into the Americas. So we're wanting to strive through Dumbartung here to create bastions of the same truths in terms of what's happened here to Aboriginal people, and set up for the very first time the bastions of genocide. And what we want to do is try to attract the necessary funding and resources to be able to do that, and to be able to build shrines and tributes again to the stolen generations, and issues dealing with the Native Welfare Act, and bring about a sense of knowledge and a sense of understanding about the very issues in which Aboriginal people face today as a result of that whole evolution of history. And I think then we can start to build better and stronger relationships through that understanding between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. And I think we need to find the courage, and we need to try to, involve the structures of funding and the policies to be able to accept that's what Aboriginal people want to share, obviously, with the rest of the world. Because here in Australia, you've got an intentional secret country that, through the media, through the education systems, that truth is deliberately kept from the mainstream populations. Again, as Selina said, you don't hear about the history per se in terms of its truth through the education systems. You certainly don't hear it through the media or the political influences. And it's a shame, because if you look at the knowledge and the experience people have got in understanding the relationships of what's happened to Aboriginal people, well, they're understood far greater in other parts of the world than what they are in this country itself. So I think that we've got a need to pursue those sorts of idealisms. Well, I think the priority for Dumbartung is to continue to survive under whatever conditions and challenges we face as a organisation. Our maxim, in which we stated some 24 years ago, was to keep our campfires burning forever. And in that maxim laid the reality, obviously, of the challenges in which an organisation like Dumbartung faced back then and still continues to face to this day. And I think that, when you look at that endurance and you look at that history of Dumbartung, it can't be lost because of money and the financial assistance that's required from government. And I suppose that it's going to come down in our circumstances here to people, and the need of Dumbartung to continue as an organisation through the support in which people will afford it. And if you look at issues dealing with our rental agreements with the landlords, the Indigenous Land Corporation, we're only talking about $12,000 a year. If you look at the wealth in which is generated through this state in terms of mining and agriculture, you look at Western Australia being obviously one of the richest states in this country, and Australia as a country being one of the richest and most affluent countries in the world, to see the real value of culture and spirituality of the oldest living culture on the most ancient landmass on the face of the earth. An organisation like Dumbartung doing it in a proper way, it's a absolute scandal that we should even be, having to pursue 80% of our time just to generate funding to keep an organisation like Dumbartung alive. Dumbartung's track history in terms of what we've accomplished to date really should speak for itself, and it should be a privilege in reference to what we represent for the governments to fund Dumbartung. There's no question really about that, but at the moment we're under this siege, if you like, and attacked by government, and that's what it is because of the what Dumbartung represents in terms of our politics and and our history. There's a wealth of experience here that needs to be nurtured and maintained for future generations. It's the hope in terms of, again, what Selina expressed in being able to change the lives of people. This is an organisation that has changed many lives and has saved lives in the past. There's testimonies, here from our people and even from non-Aboriginal people in reference to what they've got out of Dumbartung. But, to our people, it's, it's about, re-strengthening their lives and to obviously, as part of that re-strengthening of our people's lives, to save lives.
This display here is a part of our Women's Healing Program. And a number of years ago, we did a very important healing project called the Booker Project, and that was gathering information and knowledge from our parents and our grandparents on how to create a booker in the contemporary times and in contemporary spaces that we are here today. And so we brought that knowledge together, a group of Nyungo women. And so we came together as a group of Nyungo women. There was about 20 of us women who were part of the healing program, and we were able to get the kangaroo skins in their raw form, go through the process of scraping the skins off using traditional method as possible. That's with a sharp rock, scraping off the meat and the fat, and then laying them out to dry in the sun on the lawn. And then after finishing that process, then apply various powders such as wattlebark powder and ochre and emu oil. And that was a really, really important project in terms of our own journey, our healing journey, because it not only rejuvenated a practice that was done by Nyungo women prior to colonisation, but it also took us into a very, very important spiritual state of mind where we could visualise those old Nyungo women carrying out this work, and it helped us to appreciate how Nyungo women worked hard to ensure the survival of all their family members. And so that created not only empowerment within us as Nyungo women living in contemporary times of today here in this huge metro area of Perth, but it also gave about our own strength and our own identity, and help us to have that real deep sense of appreciating not only our culture but what our ancestors had to endure in order to survive. And so the Booker project became really important to our Women's Healing Program. And so this is the result of the Booker project, and it stands here as pride of place within our cultural gallery. And we've had lots of groups over the years wanting us to work with them to develop and make the Bookers in their agencies, in their groups as well. And it's a very important empowering tool, having that knowledge and being able to have the skills just to make a Booker. And we adorn the Booker with the red-tailed cockatoo, which is important culturally as part of our spiritual life. And the red-tailed cockatoo, we believe as Nyungo people, brought fire to us and help us emerge from totemic animal life into human beings. And then the buka is important for Nyungar people because not only Nyungar people wore the buka in terms of keeping warm and in terms of comfort at night, but it also Aboriginal people, Nyungar people, were buried in their bukas, so it became more than just a materialistic item that they had with them for life. It became almost a spiritual entity for Nyungar people. So that's why that they were buried within that buka, and it went with them into the spiritual life, into the bedor itself.
This room here is a glimpse into what's become of the main gallery. We've displayed the works here and the bukas, the artefacts and the objects as a means of trying to keep our gallery going whilst we're in transition from the main gallery area. And I just want to point out some of these really important artworks that are around the bukas in which Selina spoke about. This particular painting here is a very important painting in the collection. It's been done by one of the most famous of the Karrulup artists, Revel Cooper, and we repatriated this painting from Boyup Brook in the southwest, and it was taken from an old colorbond shed, and you can see that it's an incredible articulation of a crockery ground by Revel Cooper. It was done in Fremantle Prison in the early 1970s, and it was done on masonite board using Dulux house paints, and it was only one of the ways in which the artists had the materials as such to paint on whilst they were in Fremantle Prison. And one of the people to whom had this in their custodianship or their ownership from the prison was a prison warden, and of course it would have been traded by Revel Cooper for something as menial as a packet of cigarettes or a cigarette lighter in those days, and it was an exploitive form of art in terms of what was happening in the Fremantle prison. But it's a magnificent painting of Revel Cooper. We've got these paintings here of Malcolm Ellis. This is a landscape of another very well-known Karrulup artist. It was done in the Fremantle prison as well. It was done by Ranald Hart. Then you look at these sorts of paintings over here of Malcolm Ellis. It's a magnificent landscape, all of those colours in which Malcolm Ellis painted with. You've got artworks up here again of Ranald Hart, a great artist from the southwest. This magnificent landscape here, we titled a book which we wrote in reference to cultural arts exploitation called Hamburgers for Masterpieces. And again, you can see it's an incredible art piece done by Malcolm Ellis. You've got paintings here done by Bigsy Williams, another institutionalised artist, if you like, inside the penal system. It was done down at the old Bunbury prison. You've got tables here that again was taken out from the Fremantle prison in the 70s, done by people like Gary Woods. You've got some of the old Marybank collections of fabric designs, and then these coffee tables here, which were also a part of the Fremantle prison art, was done by Revel Cooper, and you can see the old stockman and the different life around him, such as the cattle and the horses. And Revel Cooper was an incredible artist. And then you've got these magnificent ceremonial paintings here. This one is of a women's ceremony done by Anne Lambadji, and this one here shows the radiation cycles of the Maralinga bomb tests. And you got all these tracks here which are dingo, human, emu tracks, all the different wildlife leaving the centre of the bomb tests that were in Maralinga in the Western Desert Block or the Central Desert Block in, I think it was the 1950s. And then of course these incredible paintings here of young Bevan Hayward, rest in peace, and Willie Miller and others. So in a lot of ways these artworks have become tributes as well, in terms of the fact that a lot of these artists have since passed away, and these were part of the penal system, part of that institutionalisation of our culture and our art. If you'd like to just come through here, and I'll just quickly point out some of these works here. This is the secondary room in relationship to, again, re-establishing the gallery. These are again incredible paintings here of Ranald Hart. You've got Ranald Hart's works here. Then you've got this incredible painting here, which was given as a gift to the Dumbartung Aboriginal Corporation in 1988 by an artist, Harry Holland. He's an internationally acclaimed artist, but this was given as a gift to Aboriginal people during the bicentennial year. And of course you can see it's depictive of a massacre site. and you've got the three elements, if you like, in which carried out the massacres: the convicts, the police and the military. And this particular painting gives you insight into how Aboriginal people only had wood fibre to defend themselves against alloyed steel and gunpowder. And here you can see the man to whom, gives protection over the woman, and the woman given protection over the baby. And of course these depictions also focus on the horse and the way in which the horse was used as a weapon against Aboriginal people during these massacres, and that most of these massacres were instigated to happen at dawn when, again, most of the women were up but the men were still asleep and they were tending to their children. It was when people like Sterling and others rode into places like Pinjarra and carried out some of the most horrific massacres, anywhere around the planet in terms of the colonisation and the genocide of Aboriginal people. Regarding loss and grief and self-injury and issues that face our community, we did up these two response plans to the government here. This is the Suicide Action Plan, which consists of looking at three initiatives within our community, which is to set up a safe place where young Aboriginal people who are in despair and within turmoil can be taken where other Aboriginal people are that have gone through that journey in life that can help them in that first step towards seeking further help for their mental health issues. And one of the initiatives was also to set up a task force, which was to, work in the confidence with the State Coroner's Office and the Minister for Health, and that task force would monitor the spates of suicide in our community and issues dealing with our young people. Then the third initiative was to actually put in place this concept that Dumbartung coordinated, which was the train the trainer concept. So the issue in dealing with suicide prevention and post-prevention in our community was through these two documents here, and we presented these to the Premier when we met with him following the Suicide Summit in 2013.